Good afternoon and welcome to Standing Room Only with Carter Bird and Sumner Martin right here on WEGL 91.1. We'll be here every Tuesday at 2 giving you the latest news from the sports world and giving you our takes on it along the way.
He was a hard-headed man. He was brutally handsome.
Hello and welcome to Standing Room Only right here on Weagle 91.1 FM and WeagleFM.com. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Sumner Martin. How you doing, Sumner?
Yeah, I'm better. Apologies for we couldn't have the show Monday. I was a little bit under the weather, but I am back. I feel a lot.
Back from the dead.
Yeah, fresh. So it's good to be back. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, let's start with one of the biggest headlines that happened right after this past weekend. Chad Morris, the now former Arkansas head coach, is now no longer employed by the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, I think they didn't really have a choice. When you don't win an SEC game,
you can't get dominated by Western Kentucky.
And
we're not talking like the Western Kentucky teams that used to be ranked. We're talking about a team that was 5-4 coming into the game.
I mean, he went 4-18 in 2 seasons. The trajectory of the program just never looked optimistic at all. Even the wins that they had gotten this year and last year just didn't look appealing. I mean, you've got a close win against Portland State,
a loss to San Jose State,
a blowout to Western Kentucky. It was just time to go. They stretched and they tried to get what they thought was an up-and-coming coach, a guy that is, some see it's obviously in the Malzahn coaching tree, but that kind of high, or not to that extent, a little bit lesser extent, but kind of knew the area and thought he could bring success from SMU, and it just didn't work out. He didn't have what it needs to be. I don't think he's one of those guys that can go out and be a really good head coach. I think he's a good coordinator and can be a good positions coach, but I just don't think he obviously didn't have what it took to be the head coach of Arkansas. So
yeah, kind of like you said, it was a matter of time when things started to unravel for them. They just didn't have the talent, not at all. I mean, like they had that tight end who's really good, the nose tackle, and then Rakeem Boyd at running back, and that was about it.
Yeah,
quarterback play was atrocious.
Oh, he brought Hicks from SMU because Hicks was at SMU, and the games that I watched, specifically the Auburn game, he just couldn't make
his body language was just terrible against Auburn.
So this plays into the factor now that Gus will be swirling. Obviously, that is per reports that he is the dream hire for Arkansas, as he was a few years back when they hired Chad Morris. Gus said nothing's changed. He still wants to be at Auburn. But it's something to talk about at the end of the year. If you look and you see Auburn, this is all hypothetical, if they lose to Georgia and if they lose to Bama, and he's catching some heat on if those games don't go well and how the season didn't turn out how it was supposed to be, they're going to call Sexton and reach out, and we'll see what happens. But it's going to be something to talk about.
Are we sure that Arkansas is even that interested in Malzahn right now?
That's what the Arkansas boards and the 24/7 boards, that message boards, and the insider information that I saw today and yesterday were saying that there has been build up that they are going to reach out to Sexton, which is Malzahn's agent, obviously. And at least discuss the possibility. Now, this has nothing to do with any like this. I mean, this can happen, and Gus can still not leave and stay at Auburn. So they're not, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. But they will reach out to him, I think, and Sexton will go to Gus and ask him how he's feeling in the year. I think if you go to Arkansas from Auburn, you lose a chance to win a legitimate shot to win a championship year in, year out. That's obviously what you're losing if you're Gus. You want to coach on the biggest stage. You need to be at a team like Auburn or an Alabama or LSU, these kind of teams in the SEC. Arkansas, this is the positive from it, though. You go to Arkansas, you can win 8-9 games a year, make it to a decent bowl game, and you'll be praised 365 days a year. Obviously it's his alma mater. He walk-on wide receiver there. He knows the area. He can recruit well in the area. And, I think those fans will always be pleased as long as he doesn't completely flop. They would always be pleased. Here at Auburn, no matter what you say, there's always going to be a percentage of fans that just dislike Gus. And that will never change because of the unrealistic, at times, expectations that are here with Alabama playing Georgia every year. that's just how it goes. So I think if he wanted a lot of money, which they would throw him a lot of money, you want to win just 8 or 9 games a year and be fine, then it would be something to consider if he were unhappy. But I don't think he's that unhappy. I think he was close, and he obviously wagered it into a deal a few years back. But now, I mean, it is something to discuss. It depends on how the end of the season goes, and also if he wants to go to that type of program. Because I think part of Gus still wants to be proving that he's a championship contender on a championship contending team every year in, year out. You can't do that at Arkansas.
See, I wonder if the way things played out in 2017, if it didn't upset Arkansas to the point that they don't even want to really come after him. Maybe they feel like it's bridges burn type thing. Because if they feel like that scenario, they were just used for leverage to get the contract that Gus ended up getting. Right. That's my only thing with it is I'm not sure how serious of a name Arkansas is, like how much that they really consider going after Gus at all.
Yeah, no, and I still think that the likelihood of this happening, Gus leaving, is still very, very minimal. It would have to be a drastic turn of events at the end of the season. Have to be some ugly losses, a lot of fans, a lot of the board getting really, really not happy at Gus, and then something takes a turn for the worse and he leaves. But that's very unlikely. I think if you look at he knows what he needs to do. He wants to stay. If he gets a win against Georgia, he's fine. But it'll be something to watch.
I would say that going to Arkansas now as opposed to in 2017 would probably be easier for a guy like Gus because if you remember back in 2017, Bielema had just left Arkansas and they were changing offensive systems into that Chad Morris system, which is similar to an offense like Gus Malzahn's offense.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit ahead on the personnel from where it was 2 years ago. And then also, I mean, the stigma right now of Arkansas is this year's team's the worst SEC team in maybe 30 years.
Right. That's the thing. They have the money. It's just, does he want to go to that type of program and just accept that for the next however many years he would be there if he went, that I'm just going to be playing for, getting to a Cotton Bowl or, some kind of bowl like that, I mean, if I were Arkansas, obviously I would consider it, but I would throw money at Mike. I think Mike Leach would be a good target.
I really want Mike Leach in the SEC, man.
It would be crazy. I think he could do some really good things. I mean,
I need those quotes.
You look at the success that Arkansas has had. Obviously, the best teams they've had back in the Petrino era were air raid offenses that spread it out, had really good receivers, good quarterbacks, and just threw it around. Leach could bring that over, so that's something to consider. But yeah, it's. There's going to be a lot more coaching openings in the SEC when we get to the end of the season, but this one will be the most intriguing to watch.
Yeah, that and that FSU job, which is all over the map. You haven't really heard anything about that one.
Right.
Let's move on to the news from Tuesday night as the second edition of this year's college football playoff rankings dropped. And I still feel like we're disrespecting Minnesota.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe.
They shouldn't be behind Utah.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be.
Time will only tell because you look at, not only are the committee disrespecting them, but they're not even favored this weekend at Iowa, and Iowa's not
Iowa's not exactly an offense that scares you.
They're not an offensive juggernaut, that's for sure. So,
they just got drummed by Wisconsin too.
Right. So Iowa's 3-point favorites. This is another weekend that PJ Fleck is going to motivate his guys and say, look, they're not giving us the respect we deserve. And this is another weekend where we can go out and prove ourselves. So now, I don't think they're better than any of these teams, these top 6, though. Utah, I would put them in the same conversation with Utah. I think they can hang with Utah. But
I tell you what,
I don't see them. I'm not putting
a couple matchups that I think could be really intriguing. I wouldn't write them off against Oregon. And I'm not sure I'd write them off against Georgia.
Okay, mate, Georgia I could see
just because Georgia's offense doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah,
and if they just have that connection between Tanner Morgan and Bateman,
right,
like they did against Penn State.
Yeah, I will say Minnesota impressed me this past weekend. I did not expect. I had as one of my losses Penn State.
The fight and effort that they fought with. My God!
I think that's just the kind of. I think that team embodies Fleck. Fleck is just that much
Row
of
the
a motivator.
boat, man.
He's a good
Row
coach. He's intense.
The freaking boat.
I mean, I just think, when you have the pieces that they have at receiver, wide receivers are a lot more talented than people think, and a lot of people that they haven't really paid attention to, and you saw it in the Penn State game.
James Franklin said it was the most talented group of receivers that they were going to face going into the game this past weekend, and he may come out of that game being like, they might be the third best receiver group in the country now.
Yeah, no, they were really good, and the thing was,
Bateman torched them.
Right. Well, and
he looked like it was like watching Mike Evans back in the day at A&M, just a big, massive body, number 13, just running wild in the secondary.
Well, and I'll tell you what killed Penn State was the turnovers. Obviously, the game would have been a lot different if Clifford doesn't throw that interception, in the end zone at the end of the game. But, nonetheless, they impressed it. But, to look back at the other rankings, you got LSU came in at 1, obviously, Ohio State 2, Clemson moved up to 3, and then Georgia at 4. How did you feel about Georgia moving into 4? Because a lot of people didn't think they deserved to be there, just because of.
I think based off pure resume right now and what's been done and the way that the teams are playing, I think Oregon right now is playing better football than Georgia. But I'm not shocked to see Georgia 4 because of the name recognition, and that sets it up. It all but ensures the second SEC team is going to make this playoff.
And people
if Georgia wins out all the way, Georgia and LSU go.
Right.
If Georgia loses, we are setting up, and this is the point I want to get to. We are setting up for Alabama to get in, and it infuriates me because they don't have a quality win.
No,
it's really bad right now. And if they were to win out, their only win would be Auburn, which. There are 3 teams that have that win. Right. And if you go look at Georgia's resume would be a heck of a lot better. Yes, they would have a loss to LSU, and yes, they would have a loss to South Carolina. But at some point, we've got to quit rewarding Alabama for scheduling cupcakes and garbage every week.
Right. Well, and I think it plays into the sentiment of the national frustration around getting SEC teams in. And it just kind of working out that way every single year.
They are the best conference. So, it doesn't shock me that the SEC gets 2 teams in. But, and the way to shut up the Alabama narrative? One time, don't put them in. And then the schedules change from here on out. I promise you.
Yeah.
If you keep them out and you say, you played Duke, and you played Sister Mary's School.
A&M is A&M's the best win right now.
Yeah, and that's not a good win.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I agree with you. My 4 would definitely be, I would have Oregon, and I understand the Pac-12 is weak, but, you look at that win at Washington, that's better than Georgia and Bama have. Also, Georgia, we've talked about this plenty of times, just, for one, haven't looked good. Another,
that offense doesn't scare me at all.
Another thing, their one loss is at home against South Carolina, where South Carolina wasn't healthy. And then, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, I would have Oregon at 4, and then I would have Bama above Georgia, just because you look at both their losses.
I think Oregon should be 4. Oh yikes! Then maybe Alabama.
Bama would be 5.
Alabama, but we are setting such a stupid precedent right now that is. Because of the stigma we have of Alabama and the talent that we know is on the roster,
right?
They don't have to go be impressive.
They get the nod.
They just have to be there with one loss at the end.
Yep.
And that's such a stupid precedent to set.
Well, and that leads up to what I was about to say is Auburn now has the chance to play spoiler those next few weekends. You've got Georgia, which would be a playoff win if they win, a playoff team win. Then you have Samford and then Bama. Bama would, most people think, move up to 4 if Auburn beats Georgia.
Hey, man.
And then you're looking at a team that has 2 playoff wins, a win against a Pac-12 champ if Oregon wins out, 2 losses.
Okay.
It is looking more likely than I thought it would be.
It would help you if you can have Oregon drop a game down the stretch and then still win the Pac-12.
Yep.
Because then that's 2 loss Oregon.
Obviously,
that eliminates the Pac-12,
yep.
But you have the conference champion win right there. And then if you look over here on our board behind us over here, this is a real thing that could happen this weekend. Baylor could beat Oklahoma Because Oklahoma's
Good.
defense
I
can't
don't think
stop a
it'll-
soul, and their defense is banged up.
I don't think it'll happen,
And it's
but
at
it could.
home.
It is. It
and
could
it's
happen.
game day.
It could happen. I don't think it will happen, but it could happen. I'll
If
give
Baylor
you,
pulls off the upset, I don't think Baylor beats them again in the Big 12 championship. So then you have a 2-loss Big 12 champion. Those two conferences are done.
yeah. No,
Then
obviously you still need a lot of chaos.
Then
but-
two SEC teams are legitimately in contention.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, Penn State's going to lose to Ohio State. Minnesota's got a tough stretch down here. They have Iowa, Wisconsin, and then at Northwestern.
Right.
And if they win one of those, they win the conference, or they win their division, and they go
yep.
play Ohio State.
Not beating Ohio State.
Not a ton has to happen.
Yeah.
If Auburn wins out, for Auburn to play their way back into it.
It really isn't. It's kind of shocking, but that's if Gus can, crawl his way out, it would be something. It would be something to watch. That's for sure.
It'll be something to keep an eye on starting this Saturday, and that's where we're going to go after this break. When we return to Standing Room Only here on Weagle 91.1 FM and WeagleFM.com, we will be talking about the Auburn-Georgia matchup. Welcome back to Standing Room Only right here on Weagle 91.1 FM and WeagleFM.com. And we're going to talk about Auburn's big matchup with Georgia on Saturday on the CBS 230 game. As, by gosh, Auburn's got a real shot to ruin some people's playoff hopes, starting with this one.
I'm getting some 2017 feelings. I have not been confident about many big games on this schedule for this team, but I've got a gut feeling that Auburn may pull this one off. And it's mainly just because of this. The matchup just fits perfectly this season for Auburn at home. You've got a Georgia team who, for one, haven't really proven much. I mean, they made it in the playoff, but we talked about it. Their schedule is and they haven't played much. Auburn's defense at home, as well as the offense isn't great, but obviously we know they're a completely different team at home in Jordan Hare. The defense holds them under 20 points, and if the offense can somehow get 20, I think they win. I think they're going to win outright.
See, I don't even think both teams get to 16. I think it's.
I got 21-17, maybe 24-17, something around that.
Let's talk about the keys to the game before we jump into score predictions. Auburn's got to figure out a way to run the ball and run the ball well. Auburn's only lost, I believe, one time as long as Malzahn's been here, when running for 200 yards against Georgia. I think it was in the wins they're averaging over 251 yards a game.
Yeah.
Like, Auburn's got to figure out a way to establish the run against this Georgia defense. A Georgia defense that's very good statistically.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. There can't be any excuses for the offense because, first of all, you look at Gus, obviously coming off the bye week. He's 8-0 as Auburn's head coach after a bye week. So that's a pretty good stat. You've had this week to prepare, get schemes, formations, whatever little trick plays he's got up his sleeve for this week. Obviously, you've known you're going to be planning for these two being the biggest games of the year. You're playing your rivals. Now it's even bigger because they're playoff teams, and you could play spoiler. You've got to be able to run the ball. On the defensive end, you look at Georgia. Georgia's offensive line is one of the better in the nation, let alone the conference. As long as the defensive front, Davidson and Brown, can get pressure, Fromm has not been that impressive. And
Fromm has not been the guy that we thought was going to be a first-round quarterback.
I mean, he's got one more touchdown pass than Bo.
Bo's accounted for more touchdowns.
The Georgia receivers, as we have talked about on the show before, have not been consistent.
There's been one that's consistent, and that's Lawrence Cager. Lawrence Cager is the guy that they run the entire passing offense through.
Right. As a unit.
And then the second option every now and then is George Pickens.
Right.
Which George Pickens, his numbers only really picked up this past weekend after Cager got banged up.
Right. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that Bo is maybe the second best quarterback that they have faced this year. I mean, you look at who Georgia's faced. Missouri last week without Kelly Bryant. You go Florida, Kyle Trask. I think Kyle Trask and Bo, obviously Bo's a freshman. He's made some bad mistakes. I still think arm talent and skill-wise, I would put them in the same conversation.
Yeah.
Kentucky against a
Lynn
wide receiver, half running back, half quarterback. South Carolina banged up.
No, it was Helinski, and then it was
Zelensky, and then the backup.
Who is that guy? I don't even know his name.
Exactly. Proves my point. And then Tennessee, Garantano. And
No, it was against Maurer, and then Maurer
right,
got
Maurer
hurt.
was in.
Maurer got hurt, and Garantano came in. It was after Garantano
Yeah.
had gotten benched for Maurer.
Right. So you're looking through this. This is every single game. And then Arkansas State, Murray State, and then they played Notre Dame. Ian Book. I mean, that's
Ian
just
Book
not
hasn't been the guy that we thought he was going to be.
it's not out of the realm of possibility. If Gus comes, this has to be one of his best game plans, if not the best of the year. Get Bo in easy rollouts, out of the pocket, simple throws. Get Schwartz and Seth across the middle of the field, and pound the running game.
I think this is a game where J.J. Wilson needs to catch the ball 5 times. I think 5 times utilizing the middle of the field, because then you can use Schwartz to pull people away from the middle field. Schwartz and Seth to pull people away from the middle of the field. Auburn's got to attack the middle of the field, which Auburn's not done a fantastic job of this year. And that's, I mean, Auburn's, there needs to be a lot of those quick timing rhythm throws that we saw early against Ole Miss.
Right. This is the thing, that when you know your offensive line isn't going to be able to pass block, you just need to go ahead and prepare for it. Don't say, all right, look, we're going to develop, we're going to get better this week, and we're still going to be running those same type of plays where Bo sits back in the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds. You're not going to have that time. That's just, the offensive line is not that great this year. You have to play to what you have. Get him in quick throws, quick short routes. I'd roll him out a little bit, do it. I was watching the 2017 game a few days ago. Stidham rolling him out to the right every 3-4 plays with just a crossing route with Slayton obviously was following Stidham when he was here. Seth following Bo this year to the right of the field. Worst case scenario, you throw away or you scramble for 2-3 yards. Get him out of the pocket, get some easy throws. Obviously, Schwartz, getting him in some just quick comeback routes, stuff like that. Schematically, Gus is going to have to be on his game, because this is obviously one of the best defenses in the country.
So we kind of saw it in the Ole Miss game. But when Auburn went into that 2017 Georgia game, we saw a completely different scheme almost on offense.
Right.
It was we've been a run-first team to this point the whole season, and we are going to nickel and dime it down the field on you the whole way down the field. That's how Auburn opened the game in both games.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Ryan Davis had double-digit catches against Alabama that year.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of what we saw against Ole Miss.
Well,
Because the way to make your young quarterback feel comfortable, especially like against Ole Miss when you're coming off a rough showing on the road, is you give on early downs, give him quick, easy completions, have him set onto a rhythm, and set up a third and manageable. Stay ahead of the sticks. Just from an analytics perspective, that's the most efficient way to run the offense.
Yeah, well, and here's the other thing that people haven't been talking about. This game very well may come down to a field goal. We all know Anders Carlson is coming off 3 missed field goals against the Ole Miss game. This could be a 2017, 17-14 kind of game. I think they need to, and look at 2017. I think Auburn went up 9-0, or took the lead 9-7 after Chubb got that touchdown from 3 field goals from Daniel. Anders is going to have to, I think he needs to make one early, because I have a feeling until they prove me wrong, the red zone offense has been pretty inefficient. Until they prove me wrong, he's going to need to get some confidence early, hit a field goal. That way, when it gets down later in the game, which I think it may come down to a field goal, he's ready to step up. Because if not, Anders is one of those guys that's just, obviously a lot of kickers, a lot of it is mental. If you miss one and it comes down late, then you're not looking so confident. So I think he's going to have to hit some field goals early, just to get in a rhythm. That way, later in the game, you feel a little bit safer.
I think this game is decided with one key matchup. How does Georgia's O-line stack up with Auburn's D-line? They haven't seen a D-line like Auburn's. They haven't seen a D-line, especially with the fact that they have 2 centers banged up the middle.
Yeah.
They haven't seen the pressure that's going to come up the middle. But they are also, if there's an O-line as a unit that can control and block this Auburn defensive line, it's this Georgia line that's really big, really physical.
Yeah. No.
It's a matter of, if Auburn gets pressure on Fromm, this game is different. Because if you look at it, Georgia's number 2 in the country when it comes to sacks allowed as an offensive line. They've only allowed 5 sacks the entire season. So, can Auburn get consistent pressure on Jake Fromm, and can they get 2 or 3 sacks and start to make Fromm feel pressure? Because when Fromm feels pressure, things can change on a dime. We saw him throw 3 picks, his only 3 picks of the year, against South Carolina, and if the pressure can force turnovers and Auburn can get a short field,
right?
I think a short field for Auburn to set up a touchdown changes this entire game.
Right. No, I think short field's the key, obviously, because you look at Georgia's defense. Obviously, statistically in all the ranks, they are
they
best
have
defense.
the talent,
but
they haven't played a bunch of explosive offense.
It's kind of skewed because you look at the quarterbacks they've faced, the teams they've played. It doesn't really stack up. You're wondering if it's legitimate. So short field turnovers, getting from obviously going to be big key.
I wouldn't mind seeing Harold Joyner line up wide because we know he's probably not going to run the ball.
As long as he holds onto the ball, I'm fine utilizing him in every possible way.
When catching passes, he is yet to fumble. He's fumbled a lot when it comes to running it.
Right.
Which is probably why he won't run it again.
Yeah, no, I don't think he needs to. But and then the other thing on the offense side of the ball, obviously we're going to need Nick Brahms to keep improving because this is going to be another. I mean, this is I guess you can put Florida in the conversation for the toughest D-line that they've faced this year, and it was at Florida. But other than that, this is, I would say, the biggest test for this offensive line.
I think it's the most. I don't think they're not an elite pass rushing D-line. They're really good at stopping the run, and I just think the unit as a whole.
It's just talent-wise,
so athletic.
I think talent-wise, and that's honestly, you go back to, we talked about the playoff rankings, giving them the nod. I feel like the committee, a lot of the times when you're looking at Georgia and Bama,
it's skewed towards talent,
right? And you look at the talent, you're like, well, these guys just have.
Look
so and so, which makes sense.
Look at the top 5.
Right,
they're the 5 most talented teams in the country.
Yeah. So
and regardless of what they've done to prove that they belong, which is the rant I just went on about Alabama.
Right. I mean, that's the predicament you have. So I understand, but I would like to see them prove. So I mean, we'll see this weekend if Brahms and company can hold up against the talented, unproven. Albeit, but we'll see. We'll see if they can.
What's your score prediction right now?
I'm going to go 2017.
2017.
Auburn. I do like Auburn though. I think Auburn's going to.
I'm going to go 16-13 Auburn. I don't see a lot of team touching 20. I think this could be one of those games.
Steer clear from the over. Yeah.
Nothing happens for 2.5 quarters. It's just
that's why
4 or 5 play drives and punts.
That's why I think field goals are going to be so important. Andrew's going to have to he's got to have his confidence this week more than ever.
That's fair enough. We'll see what happens on Saturday. We are going to head to a quick commercial break. When we return, we will give our locks of the week. Back to standing room only right here on Weagle 91.1 FM and WeagleFM.com. And it is time to talk about the Auburn-Georgia game this weekend as Auburn dropped another one-score game. The Florida game wasn't a one-score game until the very end when a big run was busted. But it was a one-score game as Auburn dropped it 21-14 to number 4 Georgia this weekend.
Yep.
And it was a game that very much turned there in the fourth quarter as Auburn was down 21-0, and then
definitely
2-minute offense clicked in. And
this is just the so we'll talk about the game first, and then we'll go into what we've been hearing around campus about the future of this program. I'll say that. So the game, I think this was my first takeaway. Obviously, the first 3 quarters were horrendous for you get shut out for 3 quarters, and you're looking like you're about to get blown out at home. With, once again, we've said it every single show, this defense had a heck of an effort, is still one of only 6 college teams to hold every single one of their opponents this season to under 24 points. Steele had a great game plan. Yes, they had the first touchdown broken coverage by Daniel Thomas. And they got worn down there in the very late, the latter half of the second half when Gus called the timeout and they drove down and got up 14-0 before half. But I look to Gus Malzahn, and I'm looking at him and saying, look, what you're off a bye week. You have 2 weeks to prepare and implement a system, have plays, and look, he looked good like we thought he would the very first drive of the game because that's his scripted. That's the one he scripts and he has prepared and ready. But after that, you missed the field goal. Anders Carlson, now 4 of 10 from beyond 40, between 40 and 49 yards. You missed the field goal, and the next few drives, the air is just kind of sucked out of the home field Jordan Hare faithful. I mean, you have this much time to prepare for an opponent, and your defense stops them that many times and gives you the opportunity to get back in the game and then get back in the game. I mean, look at the defense forced, 9 3-and-outs? I mean, the Georgia offense did not play well.
I think it was 11. It's 11 3-and-outs.
Excuse me.
No, it was 9 3-and-outs, 11 punts.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, what else can you ask for? You've got your home. Your defense is giving you every single opportunity to be back in the game, and you put up an offer. And
we saw that Auburn defense yet again in a game kind of get put in a scenario where they have to kind of continue to play outside their mind, continue to bail out an offense that's struggling initially. And you saw them finally, after they have to continue to make stop after stop after stop, much like the other two losses, a couple finally slipped through the cracks.
Yep.
And then you saw in the fourth quarter, the offense goes down and gets a score.
Right.
And it was like the defense just got injected with a new energy.
And
the stadium did too.
Right. And here's the thing. Yes, they had an opportunity in the end, but my question is, why does it take you that long as an offensive genius that he is supposedly supposed to be? How does it take you 3 quarters to figure out that this is what you should be doing on offense? You have 3 quarters to do anything. And you can't you have 171 yards leading up to the fourth quarter. 0 points to show for it. I just don't, especially coming off a bye week. I feel like a broken record at this point because every single loss, it seems like the past few years when there's a big loss, it seems to be Gus Malzahn's fault, or at least, his offense's fault. Whoever you want to put the blame on. Now, I know he's not the only problem, but he's not the solution. He's not the answer. So,
yeah.
I just think at some point the offensive ineptitude, I guess we can call it, have started to become the norm for Gus Malzahn in big games against top 25 against really good opponents. I think that's become the norm for him, and I think it's eventually what has become the downfall of Auburn. Other than apart from 2013, which was the very first season, and apart from 2017, his offenses have digressed. He's had 4 or 5 seasons of 5 losses. He had 1 4-loss in 2017 after losing to Georgia in the SEC championship and then UCF in the Peach Bowl. I just think it's time. It's his 7th year. This is the most telling thing in the press conference. This is after you're deep in the season. You have 2 more games left in the regular season. Gus's quote was, "The offense is a work in progress."
Yeah, I don't love that. I don't love that quote as somebody who's gotten to watch this Auburn team all year, who at the beginning of the year really, especially after that Mississippi State game, felt very strongly that they were heading in the right direction. 10 games in, that's a
work in progress.
That's a pretty rough
just blows my mind. It doesn't make sense.
I believe it was Justin Ferguson that posted on Twitter Auburn's points per game, the rank nationally and then the rank in the conference. In 2013, they were 3rd in the FBS and 1st in the SEC. Then it went to 35th and 6th in 14, 68 and 8th in 15, 75th and 9th in 16. 17 jumped back up to 26th and 2nd, and then it was right back down to 56th and 10th, and this year 55th and 8th.
Right.
They are scoring nearly 20 points fewer than his offense was in 2013. He was scoring 38 points a game in 2013. It's 18.5 right now.
Yeah.
When you look at yards per play, They were 13th in the FBS and 6th in the SEC in 2013. And then you fast forward to, and they were averaging 6.38 yards per carry, or yards per play. And then when you get to 2019, it's 4.36 yards per play, 67th in the FBS and 11th in the SEC.
Yeah.
Things have not trended in both cases. They were trending in a negative direction and then got a 2017 bump and then continued to fall. I mean, they've fallen every year with the exception of that 2017 little bump.
Yeah. I mean, look, let's go back to the offense in the Georgia game. They are once again, as they've been, I feel like all year in the past few years, third down, just over 30%. They were 5 for 18 on third downs. Another thing, Gus claims this team is a run-first offense, run play action. Your two lead running backs, DJ Williams and Jarvis Whitlow, 49 rushing yards.
Yeah, I will say I was a little surprised at halftime to see that the two main running backs only had 11 carries and Bo Nix had 24 passes.
Bo Nix led the team in rushing.
I felt that after the Booby Wildcat play, where he tries to make a play and loses 13 yards, which that really skewed the yards per play rushing of the yards per rush for the Auburn running backs. I mean, if you look at the advanced stats, Auburn had a higher success rate when rushing. Booby had a 55% success rate. DJ Williams had a 38% success rate. Auburn as a whole had a 42% success rate rushing the ball to Georgia's 29%.
Yeah.
And I felt after that play, Auburn really kind of went away from the run.
Yep.
And I do feel like the first half, it was an absurd amount of short timing passing plays, and I felt like the only play that really worked was the Seth Williams slant.
Yeah, there were 5 or 6.
And Seth Williams blows his career receptions out of the water.
Right.
I think his career high was 8, and he had 13.
Yeah.
Should have had 15 or 16.
I mean, here's the thing too that we've talked about this season. The offensive lines past few years. Gus Malzahn. There's nobody else to blame but Malzahn and JB Grimes for the offensive line this year. You didn't recruit at the position, and guess what? Georgia was in the backfield. Georgia was in the backfield immediately. Almost every other play in the first 3 quarters. And offensive line could not get a push.
I'm not sure J.B. Grimes deserves all the blame if you're going to blame
I think he deserves a little bit.
Coach.
Just because they haven't developed.
I think if you're going to put blame on J.B. Grimes, you have to put blame on Herb Hand. Because Herb Hand, a lot of those guys are his guys. J.B. Grimes has only been back for, 2 years?
Yep. They haven't developed at all, though. We need a little bit of progression because I know he's not revered as a recruiter, so I'm not going to give him flack on that for the players that are here or whatever the skill talent he's got. But there should be some progression. There should be development. If you're known as a key developer at the offensive line position, then your team needs to be getting at least a little bit better. But it's not as much him as it is Gus for not recruiting that position the past 3-4 years.
The most astounding stat to me was when Auburn went to that hurry-up, 2-minute style offense in the fourth quarter, and they went down and scored the touchdown, and then the defense got hyped, the stadium got hyped. The fourth quarter yardage was 158 for Auburn to 2 for Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a waste. I feel terrible for Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson and company, all these seniors that came back that had just a phenomenal year this year, a phenomenal defense. I think at home, best defense in the country.
Javaris Davis played his best game of his career.
I think this defense at home.
He had 4 or 5 plays that he made in coverage.
Yeah.
That were plays that I don't think he's made, but he hasn't made that consistently. He looked unbelievable.
This defense, the case can be made especially when they're at Jordan-Hare, is the best defense in the country. And they're being wasted this year. They're being completely wasted. You hold every single team with the strength of schedule that they're going against under 24 points this year, especially LSU, who just dropped 50 almost on Alabama, and you hold them to 23 and you can't get anything. You hold Georgia 21. It's a shame. It's a shame to Kevin Steele on the defensive staff because they're doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, my last stat I'm going to bring up, if you look at the success rate of plays in the fourth quarter as well, Auburn was a 53% success rate in the fourth quarter, Georgia was 0. 0.
Yeah.
They didn't have a single successful play in the fourth quarter. Are the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl again? It's the biggest knee-jerk reaction.
I know. How many, we go from 1 week to this Cowboys team is a waste of talent and Jason Garrett should be fired to, all right, they're back. They are winning it all. They are a contender. I think they looked good. I mean, they looked promising.
I mean, Dak may have had his best game as a pro.
But
threw for 444 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think they looked good.
Also, do a ton.
No, I feel like we've said this. He hasn't looked the same this year. I don't know what it is. I can't really, pinpoint it. He hasn't looked as explosive as he normally is, as much of a beast as he normally is, and maybe that's just me, but I think this Cowboys team still has the pieces and still has the mentality. It's just 27. I'm not sure. I'm still not sold on the defense. 27 points to a Jeff Driscoll-led Lions is not what you would call convincing performance.
Jeff Driscoll is buying himself like 7 years in the league as a backup right now. It's awesome to watch.
Also, interesting.
He's going to be the next Chase Daniel.
Maybe. Chase Daniel. I love me some Chase Daniel. But no, interesting. Bo Scarborough scored that first touchdown for the Detroit Lions. Haven't seen him in the league.
He's bounced around a lot.
Yeah, so good for him, SEC boy. Michael Gallup was really, really good. 9 receptions, 148 yards. Dude. So Dak is starting to get a really, really good connection with him.
I think they're starting to figure out, our quarterback's actually playing incredible. Let's ride him a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good road win against the Lions defense, at least that's very, you play Jeff Driscoll, but it's a Lions defense that's shown they're one of the better units in the league. So I think it was an impressive win that they had to have.
Let's move on to the game that we all thought was the game of the week between two MVP candidates, and the Ravens really blew the Texans out of the water there.
Yeah, look, there was one MVP candidate that took a big drop, and one that is the new front runner. I think Lamar Jackson is. I think he's overtaken Russell Wilson in a few Vegas books as the lead.
I believe he's the 7-5 favorite.
Yeah, 724, 222 yards, 4 touchdowns. Once again, it's just people cannot stop this offense. I think it's time, with the way the Patriots looked against the Eagles, with the offense struggling again. We've seen the Patriots offense now a few games this season struggle. I think you can make a case for the Ravens being the best team in the NFL right now. Mark Ingram looks really good. Lamar Jackson showing no signs of slowing down. And then that defense, you've got Marlon Humphrey at one corner, you've got Marcus Peters at the other. You've got a good unit, one of the most underrated coaches in the league, and John Harbaugh, who I think is a very, very good coach. And he is putting all of his trust in Lamar, which is what you want to see from a coach quarterback relationship. I think they're in a really, really good spot to make a deep run this year.
So without looking, the Ravens put up 491 yards of offense. How many were rushing?
Mark Ingram ran for...
He only ran for like 48.
50, and then Lamar ran for what? Like Lamar ran for like 70 or 80?
86. How many yards?
All right, so that's all right. How many are passing?
That's cheating. If I give you the passing yards, I give you the exact number of rushing yards. I'm not giving you that. Just take a guess. Take a
guess at what?
How many rushing yards of the 491?
I'll go with Lamar's 80.
Mark Ingram's 48.
155.
263.
Wow.
Gus Edwards ran for 112 on 8 carries.
See that? Oh my gosh, I forgot Gus Edwards. Yeah, that's... Wow. How many carries did Gus Edwards get?
8. Had a 63-yarder.
Yeah, we've seen that was the one thing that, the Texans were plus 4.5 going into the game. That was the one thing that was a little bit of a concern, was obviously with J.J. Watt out, the Texans are not, they just can't stop the run now. You don't have Clowney. Clowney's at the Seahawks, and you don't have Watt, who gets injured again. And that defense now is going to bring, I don't see them, I had them in my top tier of teams before their injuries. Now I don't see them being able to sustain any kind of run. With you have to be big in the trenches, and they're not that anymore. I don't think they'll be able to stop elite running attacks in the NFL anymore.
Quickly, let's run through a couple more games as the Patriots get back on the winning grind.
Somewhat. It was a slow
beat
win.
The Eagles 17-10, and then the 49ers also got back to winning as
With one of the craziest backdoor, I guess, pushes you could call it, or
Ugh.
I mean that was comical. If you had 49ers -10,
and then
it's your lucky day.
it was the second dumb very end of the game cover/push as one of my pit locks of the week last week got ruined by my fantasy quarterback, Jameis Winston, throwing a big-time pick six for the over to him.